When you've been on this earth for nearly 97 years, your story reads less like a newspaper and more like a novel.
I've seen just about everything you could think of. I went through the Great Depression of the 30s, World War II.
Don Brandt also remembers the prologue just before he was born in 1918.
Well, I heard my mom and dad talk about it some, but they didn't elaborate on it much. They just said it was a terrible catastrophe.
As the First World War raged, the so-called Spanish flu plagued. U.S. papers, like this 1918 Sanford Herald, downplayed news of the virus, barely a mention.
So there's this hyper-nationalism that's going on. People are in it, to finish the war.
Historian Ben DiBiase says public morale and patriotism trumped all. Though a third of the world's population got infected, at least 50 million died, including 4,000 Floridians, at a time when the state population was fewer than 1 million. Troops returned from conflict carrying influenza with them. It festered in army camps, then moved to more populated areas like Jacksonville and Tampa.
In Tampa in particular, you have the cigar industry, which is at its zenith, during this time period, and the process of making cigars involves people tightly packed together into small rooms.
Contrast to this area, Central Florida, more spread out.
It was much, much smaller than it was back then. So that helped Central Florida, at least, I think, to kind of keep the lid on the outbreak.
But help was universal. Ads plastered in papers begged for Red Cross volunteers, the organization's golden age of aid. Suddenly, masks were commonplace and recommendations mirrored those of today. As influenza swept the nation, it had not yet invaded the area, but Orlando City Council minutes demanded public places, including schools and places of worship, shut down on October 7th, 1918.
So what did it mean for students? Obviously, virtual learning wasn't a thing. We had to dig deep to find answers.
Within an archive's vault, record keepers like Jill Moramis.
I refer to this as the Harry Potter Gonna Eat You book.
Unearthed Seminole County School Board minutes from 1918.
The action of the superintendent in suspending all schools during the period of the epidemic of Spanish influenza was approved.
They take the whole affair quite lightheartedly at first.
While Seminole County Museum's Bennett Lloyd scoured old yearbooks.
In every school year, some epidemic breaks out. This year, it was first bangs.
And this history of public education in Orange County noted schools shut down in 1918. Didn't say how long. And teachers were still paid through quarantine. Though school was vastly different back then. In session 4 to 6 months of the year, and as Orange County Superintendent Dr. Barbara Jenkins points out,
our school system is huge compared to back then. I think the school system, 212,000 students, is larger than the community was as a whole.
1 month after shutting down the city, Orlando City Council took the lid off closures amid growing death notices in local papers. Then, November 11th, 1918, declared nothing else worthwhile, a Victory Day celebration. The war to end all wars was over. The worldwide epidemic was not.
This is me when I was born. Well, it makes me feel young.
And after having lived a long, storied life, Brandt has this advice for those beginning a new chapter.
Persevere, just persevere and be and try to make the most of a situation.
Julie Gargana, Spectrum News 13.